I woke up 3 o'clock this morning and I said, you know what? This does not have to be perfect. I was so caught up on the visual perspective. I was caught up on a whole bunch of other things. But your girl was like, no, we're going to get up. It was in my bones. It was in my spirit. And I was like, I'm going to record my podcast. And so, yeah, I'm finally doing it. I don't know how you gonna feel about it, but welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. That's how I'm feeling right now. And yeah, let's get into it because welcome to the Crew Book Club podcast. And it's your girl, Sade. I don't know why we say it's your girl, but anywho, I am feeling alive. And I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm back. I think I'm back. We'll see if you get an episode next week. I ain't even gonna lie. But it's in my spirit to record right now. So whatever. Listen, I finally did it. I had a baby. My third baby after 10 years. Yes, girl. I know. Starting all over. I always wanted to have another baby. No, I'm lying. I didn't always want to, but it'll creep in and creep out every now and then we finally did it. I'm gonna be honest with you. One of the reasons why it took so long is because I know lives, and when me and my husband been married for 14 years. And let me tell you, marriage is work. And I think I didn't feel secure enough in our marriage to have another baby for so long because we went through so much. And so I finally felt ready in a sense. But let me tell you, you're never really ready. I was scared to have a baby because also giving up freedom that I was gaining because my oldest is 15 and then our youngest was 10. And so it's just kind of like, woohoo, we almost out of there. And look at here. Okay. It definitely hit different. And the reasons why I wasn't recording the pod was because I was just out of it to the point where I felt like I would be bleeding on you guys and not doing what God has purposed me to do, to inspire, to give knowledge in a way of, I went through it. Here's how you can get through it too. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't want to come on here feeling like I wasn't in the right mind space. Also, baby, I sounded a hot mess to the point where I sounded sick. Well, it would have been like, oh, girl, you sound real cringe. Let me turn this off. To the point where when people called me and asked to speak, check on me, I was just like, I sounded like this. It was so horrible. Like, that baby took me out. But I am slowly getting back to it. And I gave myself grace. And I'm still giving myself grace. Even doing this episode is grace. You know what I'm saying? And so I just felt like I didn't want to hold it in anymore. And I just wanted to give you guys an episode. So things are a little different. I was contemplating about not coming back because I wanted to revamp, do this whole new title, new this, new that. And it just wasn't meshing right. The Crew Book Club still hits for me. And clearly God wasn't giving me nothing else. So until then, it's going to stay. The name is going to stay the same. I even made a whole new cover art and everything, and I sent it to a friend and she was like, oh, that's cute. And I was like, when it's cute, it's like, okay, girl, this is me being nice because I know you're a new mom. But anywho, when it's right, and you'll see it, okay? But I didn't want to get so caught up on things being perfect, so here we are. Now I am doing it a little different. Like before, I would do chapter by chapter and all of that. No, not happening. I literally read this book already. I think I have maybe 2 chapters left, but we're going to get into it. This is Power Moves by Pastor Sarah Jakes. Roberts. And yeah, so we're going to skip around through the book. If you have the book, you can follow along. If not, that's the point of this pod, not to be so caught up on reading it page by page, but giving you a little insight in how it relates to me and how it can better you. Now, one of the segments we still have is Who Gon Check Me Boo guide is. That is not going anywhere. That has been one of the faves. And this week, the Who Gon Check Me Boo guide is coming from Songs 37, verses 23 through 24, and it reads, "The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with his hands." This scripture checked me because during my pregnancy, I just felt like I was falling behind. I was on really high cylinders. I was working at a level I've never worked before. I was seeing success in my businesses that I have never seen before. I felt like I was on that break of popping. And then I got pregnant. I literally came back from Woman Evolve, recorded one of the last episodes, coming back evolved. And girl, I literally found out I was pregnant at Woman Evolved. And in my mind, I thought I will be able to still wake up 4:30, work out, and do those things, still record a podcast each week, still show up in my real estate business. And God was like, sit your behind down. And I was just like, no, how can you sit me down? But all along, even though I felt like I was stumbling, I did not fall. I was making a baby that literally took me completely out. But I realized now I'm realizing it was a journey to be able to share with you all and maybe help a mom out who may feel like, I can't do it all. And we're not meant to do it all at once, is what I'm realizing, and to give yourself grace. And I just had a whole conversation the other day about that, but I want to stay on track. So basically, this Who Gon Check Me Boo was really about me feeling like I'm stumbling, but I know God won't let me fall. And as long as he uphold me in his hands, I am going to be okay. And my falling may seem like it's falling to me, but it's definitely not falling to him. And so I just wanted to let you know that the Lord makes those firm steps. And what our responsibility is to delight in him. So that way, when we feel like we're stumbling, we know he's not going to let us fall. Okay? Whew, girl, that totally checked me. So I want to talk about like what's happening to me, and maybe it can be relatable to you in some form of in some perspective. You know, giving birth to a baby doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing. It could be a journey of you opening up a new business. I know I recently had a friend who literally quit a corporate job, and she's birthing a new way of entrepreneurship for herself. So in relations, when I'm talking about birthing a baby, your baby could be something else. So that's what's happening, is finally giving birth to her, which is so beautiful. I was in labor for 16 hours. She came in at 8 pounds. Woo, child, vaginal. My longest labor, my biggest baby. My oldest came, she was 6 hours. And then my second came in 4. So I really thought this was going to be a fast birth, but it was not. But anywho, I can say, I want to touch on these 3 pillars in this episode that really can be in relation to the book Power Moves, and how this break, this resting period, this rebirthing period for me, and how I was not able to show up. But these are 3 things that really got me. Confidently accepting help is a lesson that was learned during this hiatus. The second thing is being vulnerable to ask and receive help. And the third thing was give myself grace and compassion. Those were the three things that I learned when I had to sit down. Because I think before I had to learn how to be accountable to myself, meaning no matter what situation I was in, me, Sade, will take responsibility for what is happening in some capacity, right? But I think I took so much responsibility that I was getting angry with myself for certain results I may not was achieving, or I started achieving so much, just me and God, but I wasn't receptive to asking or receiving help because I got it, right? And so, yeah, this time, while I was down, I had no choice but to accept help. I mean, my mother-in-law had to come in for a few weeks at a time to help me. My husband had to come home off the road sometimes to help me. I had to call friends to help me. There was times that I couldn't even drive, where I was picking up my daughter from school and having to pull over on the side of the road because I was in so much pain. And God was just like, you have to get in a space of accepting help. Because my issue was with accepting help was it came with a level of shame, right? And in Power Moons on page 47, it said, maybe you've been programmed to please others before you consider yourself, and now you feel resentful when your needs go unmet. I know people who were programmed to trust no one and to need no one, and now they're unable to experience intimacy in relationships. I don't know if you grew up in a type of household, what happens in this house stays in this house, or because someone is family, you have to do what's necessary to help them. But then when it comes to you, you feel like nobody be coming through, but I'm always expected to come through for them. So yeah, it just kind of put this thing of like shame. And then it talked about how it can be self-inflicted. And so she says, transformation does not come without discomfort, and becoming powerful will be uncomfortable before it becomes liberating. And I was just like, oh my, I have to become uncomfortable in this situation of getting help so I can know that partnering with someone and receiving help is a good thing, right? And I have put in my notes, it's like a self-inflicted wound no one else knows about, and you bring on your own shame when others who love you are just trying to help you without feeling guilty but loved. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm inflicting shame when receiving help from the people who love me is just them showing love, and allowing them to show up for me is love. In some cultures, when you go to someone's house and they offer you food and you say, oh, no, thank you, I'm fine. That could be a sign of disrespect. You know how many times people say, so you need anything? So now for me, it's like during that time, it's just like, yes, I'm okay. We're receiving that help. After I gave birth to the baby, I had a friend offer to have my house clean. And at first I was just like, oh, I can do it. But it was just like, no, it's okay. Accept the help. And then afterwards she offered, oh, I can send you Uber Eats, some stuff for groceries, And I was like, no, I'm okay, I'm fine. She was like, okay. But then it was just like, no, I could have really used that Uber Eats and that extra money for groceries, whatever. But during that time, I had no choice but to accept help. Going into the second thing, being vulnerable to ask and receive help. And I had put on my notes, what happens in the house stays in the... Oh, I talked about that. But that also conditioned me not to open my mouth and accept help. And in Power Moons on page 55, it mentioned The vulnerability required with collaboration is why many people stifle their potential. Nothing truly meaningful can happen without collaboration. And this is in all things. Whatever you're doing, you're going to need help from someone to either take it to the next level. In business, we call this leverage. Because to be able to delegate and to outsource, to give yourself time to do the other things more purposeful for you to go to the next level. In relation to the baby, I cannot do this without help. No one can. It truly takes a village. Now, whether that village is your husband, your baby's father, your mother, your sister, and some people don't even have family, so your friends, even some people who have co-workers who become friends, people that you can trust. That's where that discernment kicks in. But I'm just saying, you need help. And we have to be vulnerable enough to ask. And you're like, well, I don't know who to ask or the right people to ask. I'm going to tell you the truth. Sometimes it's the people you least expect that will help you. And honestly, really going to God and saying, if you don't know who to ask, be like, okay, God, who should I ask? Give me the discernment to know who to ask. I mean, I had a neighbor bring me food. She made mittens for my daughter. You know, I had a neighbor bring me tea. And mind you, I don't talk to these people every day. You know, they saw I was pregnant. We have each other number for the reason of we're the first ones to live in this community. So we connected. But I was receptive to the help. And I think that allowed them to say, oh, she accepts what I'm welcoming. So they're more open to offering more. If you're the person who always like, I got it, it could give off that, well, ain't no point in me asking because she gonna say she always got it. So if you're wondering why people are not offering help, it's because maybe you've rejected their help so much that you've conditioned them not to offer you the help. Closed mouths don't get fed, honey. And that is so true. Recently, I'm having an event that I could not afford completely out of pocket. And God was like, he put in my spirit to ask for sponsors. And people have showed up. I literally needed 5 to 6 sponsors. And I have locked in 4. And I need 2 more. And I'm trusting that God is going to provide. I've had people offered. I've sent invoices they haven't paid yet. But God said, do not be of concern to them. You're doing what I asked you to do. And they're going to show up some way and somehow. So I'm trusting in that. Because what happened during this break has allowed me to be vulnerable and to ask for help. And that is a lesson that I'm realizing I needed. And he had to sit me down for me to get to that point. The third thing that I want to address is giving myself grace and compassion. And that involves doing nothing sometimes. And on page 110 in the book, and this was in chapter 10, The Force is Real, it mentions, she says, instead of becoming overwhelmed by the lack of ability to push towards our desires, we have to go back to the drawing board to make sure that we're trying to accomplish has been grace to overcome resistance. And she's like, I know you're wondering, how do I do this? And she says, I'm not asking you to be a quitter forever. I'm asking you to rest for a minute. If you can trust that rest is not resignation, we can give our most precious resources the time they need to recover and come back stronger, while also giving God the room to restore a vision for our lives that does not center on forcing things to happen, but rather on us to become a force released into the earth. And this is where I knew I had to give myself grace because 1, I didn't want to bleed on anyone. 2, I had to learn how to make sure that the grace that God has given me is what I needed to focus on. I had this conversation yesterday with a group about not this whole thing of not taking advantage of God's grace. It's like, grace is overflowing. Grace is renewed. He gives that without limitation. And because God is giving me the grace, it's not so much me giving myself grace, because I could get angry with myself. I could disappoint myself to the point where I will self-sabotage. But if I'm focusing on constantly giving myself grace, I can constantly disappoint myself. Unfortunately, I'm fighting with self. Well, what I needed to pivot was, God gives me this grace. And as long as God is giving me this grace, that is all that matters. When I fall short, God gives me grace. When I mess up, God is giving me grace. It's not me giving me the grace. I have to exit that so I won't get caught up in this cycle of giving myself grace, then sabotaging, being angry with myself because I sabotaged and I didn't give myself enough grace. So I'm coming out of that cycle by realizing it is God who gives me the grace, and allowing myself to sit in that and possibly do nothing to be able to build up myself to be stronger than what I was before, and to restore the vision that God has for me. Because your vision changes. It doesn't always stay the same. When you've accomplished one part of your vision, God has another thing for you to accomplish. I think Pastor T.D. Jakes had preaches about going from 1 to 10 and then back to 1 again. That's where I feel like the level that I'm in. Because mind you, my husband traveled so much that he was home, but he wasn't home. And now we're willing to take the sacrifice. All that stuff that we learned in my past season, I'm taking that to apply it to this season for us to build something new. Ooh, the back of my Bible. It says, Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. And being receptive to that new thing, you have to allow the acceptance of God's continued grace. When you feel like the grace you've given yourself is insufficient, know that God's grace is unlimited. Okay? So sometimes, sis, do nothing. Give yourself that grace to rely on God's grace so He can restore, recover, and rebuild your vision, His vision, to come back stronger. Ooh, so good, right? So I want to end this episode with 2 quotes that I could not decide which one to use. The first quote comes from Power Moves, page 111. Resisting the temptation to be the captain of our own ship will require focus, dedication, and trust in God above all. Okay? Woo! I don't want to be the captain of my own ship. I need God to do that. Because when He's the captain, I know He can steer me clean out of any storm. Okay? Why? What's the scripture when God over here sleep and resting in a storm? And they're like, how He rested in a storm? That's exactly. I want to be resting with Him. Okay? On page 153, the other quote that stuck with me was, let me get to it. It says, disruption is not always dysfunction. Sometimes it's a sign of development. Whew. Because having this baby felt like a huge disruption, but I was developing a baby and developing new habits to what I said. 1, confidently accept help. 2, be vulnerable to ask and receive help. And 3, give myself grace and compassion. And when that grace when I feel like I ran out of that grace, I know God has not. All right. So if you've received anything from this podcast episode, please share, leave a review. I would really appreciate it. And let me know how you're doing. Let me know how you're feeling. If you ever want to connect or ask questions, please email thecrewbookclub@gmail.com. And also, as a resource, I do have a partnership with BetterHelp. You know, I'm really big on God and therapy. You get 10% off your first month of therapy if you go to betterhelp.com and click on Crew Love to get your 10%. Or you can just type in betterhelp.com/crewlove. That's betterhelp.com/crewlove. Okay, the link will be in the show notes for that. Thank you for locking in and tuning in to the Crew Book Club podcast. And I pray to God that I will see and you will hear from me next week. Peace out. Want to be a part of the crew? Hit that follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I would appreciate you showing Crew love by rating the show on iTunes and Spotify. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share and tell a friend so your whole crew can be growing with you. Let me be the first to tell you, welcome to the crew.